Hello, this is Eddie Barragon. This is my presentation on tonic and phasic firing of the peripheral nervous system. Thank you. This is my brief overview of how they function, what role they play, the similarities and differences, and the overall impacts of both on the human body. Thank you. So, going over a brief overview of some of the similarities, both are functioning by synaptic input and synaptic, electrical impulses in the brain, signals being fired and received between neurons um, in the peripheral nervous system, to be exact, and understanding the distinct differences between tonic and phasic firing. I'll go over in detail about how each of them function just a little bit further in the presentation. But kind of one of the main things I want to touch upon is understanding how and why these differences exist. And that is primarily, well, for one, it's basic physiological knowledge, but also it has far-reaching and impactful consequences and effects on how physicians treat bodies or certain conditions, or how a doctor could take into account the response of our nervous system to treatments or nerve damage or things like that. Understanding the frequency, duration, and um, effectiveness of a synaptic um, firing, it basically helps doctors understand what is something that is functional or vital for the human body in a long-term, consistent way, or what is a short, brief um, impact, and how do we account for those? So yeah, that's kind of what I just wanted to touch upon. Tonic, I will go into in just a second, and then a little bit more in detail in terms of phasic firing, but basically understanding between what a short burst and a long burst, and how to plan for that accordingly in treatments or any type of neurological condition, or even just physiological health overall. So tonic firing is the most basic and essential of the type of synaptic firings within the peripheral nervous system of the two types that I will be covering today. It can be referred to, as mentioned, as the background noise, so to speak, of the nervous system activity. Um, it's synaptic firing that occurs consistently throughout our body lifespan, and basically just it requires no further input from our nervous system for it to function or for it to occur. It is something that is mechanical and maintenance wise, I guess you could say. For our nervous system, it's not reacting to anything. It's not a specific specialized response to any sort of input. It is simply the base minimum for maintaining equilibrium and allowing our bodies to function. It occurs, as mentioned, without presynaptic firing or any sort of additional neurological feedback, or it's characterized by a steady state action potential, as in the amount of energy and chemical reaction needed to maintain it is steady and consistent, and more or less sort of the constant gait of our surrounding nervous system. I'm going to contrast that with phasic firing in just a bit. So phasic firing is the exact opposite of what I mentioned before. This is not something that occurs without prior notice. It operates at more or less the exact opposite and in function, it's reacting to specific electrical inputs in the body. Basically, what electrical impulses are required to give specific responses to specific stimuli. It is activated primarily by presynaptic activities. It is dependent on activity that is on top of any pre-existing background sort of synaptic firing. Essentially, it is a nervous reaction that operates in very short, successive, quick bursts with limited and intense, but characteristically brief electrical activity and synaptic input. For the peripheral nervous system, I guess it would be analogous to say this is like going into turbo mode temporarily to clear obstacle or unprecedented circumstance as opposed to cruise control. That's how I would liken it, really, the electrical impulses in terms of the maneuvering of our bodies, analogous to what would be the steering of a vehicle. So in conclusion, I just wanted to summarize this brief overview of the two different and distinct types of synaptic firing within the peripheral nervous system as, both the tonic and phasic firing of our bodies are incredibly important, and they're vital functions of the peripheral nervous system. Typically, our understanding is limited of both systems. What I mean by that is there's really so much research has gone into this for decades, and from all the articles and research papers that I've read, there's still so much we don't know about what characterizes a certain neurological function as being primarily tonic or phasic firing in nature. What responses that we would consider most vital are often the most steady state, whereas others that we wouldn't really necessarily give much value to, just are extremely phasic in nature, very highly specialized. Not to say that tonic is simpler, it's just more consistent and it's much more reliable to study. But again, depending on the needs of the body, it can be very difficult to predict which method of firing is actually given priority in our nervous system for specific functions. And as research continues and will continue to get better and more knowledge will be uncovered about how these different mechanisms work and how the duration, succession, and involved action potential of each type of firing is occurring, it's going to lead to more and more benefits in treating various health issues revolving peripheral nervous system conditions, and not just that, but treating other similar kind of conditions. From some of the articles I've read, there's a lot of muscle conditions that are heavily impacted by synaptic firing that can also be improved upon in their treatments. So it's very diverse. It's very varied in terms of the growing knowledge of these different mechanisms and what they can impact. So I thank you for joining me in my presentation and for giving my inputs and consideration. Thank you for listening to me, and have a good day. This has been Eddie Barragon. Thank you.